Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Stream Dialogue, people of Africa, people of the world. So, one of the things about the destabilization of Africa and a lot of problems in Africa throughout the continent can be traced back or traced to Europe's thirst for energy, especially in the last, let's say, 3 years. A la Ukraine, Russia. You get it? Does it ring? Does something click? Yes. That conflict has exposed Europe's, or it makes Europe's thirst for energy even more. So when the coup or the revolution happened in Nigeria, you saw this strong reaction from France in particular. But right next to France was the European Union. And you remember one official from the European Union said, when the sanctions and the embargo was put on Niger, she was so confident that the new authority will collapse in 1 week. Why? She was so confident. She said the hospitals, the country is running out of food and medicine, that they will collapse. So, such strong measures. Why? Uranium, of course, but there was something else. There was something else that the Europeans realized was in threat. And I will tell you about that thing. That thing is the pipeline from Nigeria through Niger, through Algeria, that will supply natural gas to Europe. Why? You remember Russia used to ship cheap natural gas from to Europe, which allowed Germany especially to become this big economic power that it was. It is known for its huge manufacturing industry. German cars, German technology was big around the world. So if you notice, ever since then, since the conflict in Ukraine spiral up, these European countries' economies, their production has gone way down. So if us Africans, us as analysts, we have realized the strategic advantage we have, or the strategic advantage Africa finds itself in. But these so-called presidents does not does they can't seize the moment. They cannot stand up to the task. But it's up to African youths, Pan-Africanists, to push this message, of course, to the population, of course, but so that new push this message so that new leaders, as what we see in Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali, can rise within these countries to unite our efforts, to unite the continent, and to take advantage of these strategic advantages. And in my opinion, from what I see, when it comes to Europe, because of its lack of energy. Because yes, you can have resources, as you see in Africa, we have a lot of resources, right? There's a lot of, but energy, and that is a way to keep African countries underdeveloped, energy starved. So it doesn't matter how much resources, if you have oil and so forth, if you cannot produce energy, you cannot industrialize, you cannot do anything. So Europe's starvation, lack of energy, it's only bringing it down. And I don't think Europe can get access to enough energy as fast to go back to where it was, let's say in 2022, before 2022, or even surpass all the major economies of the world. So yes, Europe is not only stuck, but it is declining. And in this, you will see a lot more aggression from a lot of European countries and Europe itself towards Africa because they get a lot of their resources from Africa. And even though they still losing energy, Niger uranium, they're not getting cheap energy from the east. They're buying it at premium prices from other Western countries. I will not mention their name. And then they're buying it from two third parties. So a country will buy the oil from Russia, India, sell it back to the Europeans at because even though India is buying it as a at a cheap price, but still India has to make a profit. So they're selling it to Europe at a more expensive cost. So that is the advantage that Europe have lost, and they cannot buy enough energy to bring them to that place that they was, this industrial power in countries like Germany. Yes, the UK was on its way down, France on its way down, having financial problems and so forth. But Germany was, you would say Germany was the backbone of the European economy. Now, in today's day, you don't hear about Germany. Nobody's talking about the great German economy, and that is its lack of energy. So, a lot of when we talk to Africa, a country like Nigeria, if it get its stuff together, West Africa can become a superpower overnight because you have the energy that you can supply to these people, the profit you will make, and the deal you can make is that yes, you want to build cars. Why don't you come and build them in Africa? The resources are there. You don't have to transfer the resources up there. Everything is down there. So you bring everything down, just like China. Instead of China being the manufacturing hub of the world, Africa can also be a manufacturing hub of the world, or even the biggest manufacturing hub of the world. So that explains this desperation, this support for terrorism in the Sahel, and also it explains the destabilization of the DRC. Because one of the things they're looking at is like green energy. They want to get access to a lot of these precious mineral that will help in this clean energy that they're looking for. So also have a lot of African countries, West Africa in particular, has to get strong energy policies, develop their energy infrastructure. A lot of African countries cannot supply electricity for more than 17 hours a day. That is a major problem. That is a major problem. If you cannot supply electricity for more than 17 hours in a day, how are you going to industrialize? You can't even build a pharmaceutical plant in your country. So Europe was asking for a pipeline to build through, I think it's called the Trans-Saharan pipeline. I'm not sure what it's called, through Niger. And the cool so this is another strategic position that the AES, the Alliance of Sahel State, finds itself. Even if that pipeline still goes through, this is still something you can use against the European. This is why they are so worried. They don't want their troops to leave Africa. They want their troops to get back in the Sahel in Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali, as much as possible. Just imagine if these countries were destabilized and divided, you know, controlled by rebels. Their troops would be there indefinitely. They could control, they could take the resources, their pipeline wouldn't be bothered. There wouldn't be a central government that can use that pipeline as a political economic tool against them. Any country that has a pipeline runs through its territory has lots of political international political strength. So, ladies and gentlemen, Europe thirsts for energy, and we see they're trying to push in like the Caucasus, whatever it's called, that is in places like Georgia, Azerbaijan, and those places. Azerbaijan, I think, supplies a lot of gas and oil. I think countries like Kazakhstan produce a lot of uranium as well. We saw the French went there, but I think they were told that you had to pay. They're not getting. The French will never find as cheap uranium as they were getting in Niger or in Gabon. Gabon, they're taking it, but I think it's still not enough. Gabon, a country that has everything: oil, the uranium, and look, we have a dancing clown in there. All he do is dance and behave a fool. When he could transform Gabon to resemble or surpass any middle those Gulf countries in the Middle East. But ladies and gentlemen, not to ramble too much or blabber too much. You let us as Africans recognize that momentum is shifting. We're not, a lot of people they don't see it yet, but trust me, every winter it get worse for the Europeans. They don't have the energy, the supply of cheap energy that they had before. Energy is very expensive. It cannot be sustained. It cannot be sustained. They're only declining. It's only a decline for them. So thank you so much for joining us today.